Martinique to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, our colleagues right here in the room with us, those of you joining us via Zoom, and of course those of you in the diaspora. So we have with us this morning the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, National Security, Home Affairs, Public Administration, Information and Disaster Management. Senator the Honorable Jonathan Lacrette, Minister for Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs. The Honorable Ron Redhead, Minister of State, with responsibility for youth and sports in the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. And Ms. Naomi Jeremiah, Permanent Secretary with responsibility for strategic and operational management of the general and subsidiary hospitals, Monkgate Psychiatric Hospital, Richmond Home, and Community Health Services. Indeed, a mouthful. So good morning to each and every one of you. Without any further ado, I will hand you over first to the Honorable Prime Minister. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Leslie, and good morning to my colleagues who are with me. Good morning to Ms. Jeremiah, Permanent Secretary. Good morning to all of the journalists who are here present with us this morning, both online and in person. And a special good morning to the citizens of Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada, and our citizens in the diaspora. To start this morning, Leslie, and I'm going to ask the Minister of Health to make some brief remarks as it relates specifically to the COVID-19 situation on island and our preparatory plans to address any issues or risk posed to Grenada from the monkeypox outbreak. So over to the Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Honorable Minister for Youth, Sports and Culture, and Madam Permanent Secretary, good morning. Media personnel, good morning as well, and Leslie, and pleasant morning to you. Citizens of Petite Martinique, Carriacou and Grenada, pleasant morning to the entire Tri-Island state. Part of the mandate of Ministries of Health as well as Ministers for Health across the entire Eastern Caribbean is to ensure that a level of stewardship and leadership is given to the health sector at this particular juncture within the perspective of the global pandemic. This level of stewardship and leadership must be given in conjunction with and in collaboration with all healthcare providers as well as healthcare practitioners and institutions outside of the healthcare sector whose mandate also has a health stream to ensure that collaboratively we bring that level of stewardship and leadership to the sector that causes us to create some degree of balance in the sector. As it relates to Grenada's situation and our current perspective with COVID-19, that's the new strain, and as well as the monkeypox that is now creating a little bit of hysteria on the international front. I know that there are a number of Grenadians that have been asking questions and there are concerns that are looming. So I am here to put your mind at ease this morning, my fellow citizens of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Currently, we are aware that the monkeypox virus is in our Caribbean shores, and as a result of that, we do expect, as well as the COVID-19 strain, and we do expect that after the carnival season, it is a normal expectation that after the summer season, we normally have an increase in the number of communicable diseases, or viruses rather, that normally percolate our environment and our healthcare system. I want to say to you this morning that I want to ensure you that from my ministry's perspective, we are going to ensure that we ramp up on sanitizing mandates. It is going to be very important moving forward that our population remains extremely vigilant. For those of you who are well read, and for those of you who have been following regional and or international news, you know that the monkeypox virus is spread through intimate contact. So if you have a lesion or an abrasion, a cut on your skin, and you have been infected with the virus, individuals who have the same an abrasion, a cut or a lesion on their skin, and fluid is being secreted from both of you, and you come into contact, the virus can be transmitted as a result. I want to ensure you that the monkeypox virus is symptomatic, so as a result, symptoms can be treated. As it relates to the COVID-19 strain, we want our population to ensure that you remain vigilant. At the moment, there is no need. Currently, there is no need for the population to panic. We are going to ensure that we brief you consistently as to various aspects or mandates moving forward. But as it stands, we want you to ensure that wherever you are going to get your information from, that if you do not hear from us at the Grenada Information Service or from the Ministry of Health website, if we do not do a conference or a press briefing to inform you as it relates to what is taking place, please ensure that your information is from credible health organizations or institutions across the Caribbean like CAFA, CDMA, etc., and other organizations where you're going to find credible information. So, as it relates to hysteria, any information that does not come from your institution or organization of health, please ignore it for now as false information. All right? So, that's it for me.
Thank you, Minister. P.S., you want to make any additional comments or input?
I just like to strengthen what our Minister, thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. I just like to strengthen what our Minister for Health has just stated to the population. Good morning to all and welcome to this very important briefing. It's very key that you take the information that are given from the Ministry of Health. Many times data and information is spread from other sources. As the Minister rightly stated, that we have our dashboard, we have our standard website that information are being dispersed. So it's key which relates to, as it relates to the monkeypox. We already have established, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. John Charles, have already established guidelines and protocols that will be implemented, not if, when, God forbid, that we cases of the monkeypox are being reported. We already have our plans and strategies in place to implement the way forward in guiding the process. So I thank my Minister very much for enlightening us in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, PS. Leslie, what we want to do, I must apologize. The Minister and the PS has another engagement. And so what I wanted to do was to afford the members of the media an opportunity to ask any questions they may have specifically in relation to the two issues addressed by the Minister and the PS. We can take those questions now so that we can have them excused. And myself and Minister for Youth Sports will continue. Thank you.
All right, so colleagues, so you've heard from Mr. Lacrette and PS Jeremiah. Any questions for them before they head out? Linda Stricker, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my question. My question has to do for the Minister for Health. We would have gotten confirmation last week that 2 suspected monkeypox case came back negative. Since then, I think it would have been Thursday. Has there been any more suspected cases? And besides monkeypox and COVID, what other public health concern are Grenada paying attention to more in-depthly right now?
Thank you, Ms. Stricker. Blessed morning to you, and I trust that your family is well and that everyone connected to you is in the best of health also. At this particular juncture, Can you repeat the first question for me again? I want to make sure that I have it clearly.
My question is that last week we would have had confirmation that there were 2 suspected cases. I want to know if since then, because I think I would have done that story somewhere around Wednesday or Thursday, has there been any other suspected cases, and what other public health concern is Grenada paying close attention to right now?
Yes, so at the moment, there are no other suspected cases. I believe that we're waiting on one other sample to return from CAFA, and we are trusting that that sample returns negative as well. But the 2 suspected cases, as you correctly stated, return negative, and we are grateful about that. To be quite honest with you, Ms. Stricker, during the pandemic, simultaneously we had another pandemic taking place, and that's a mental health pandemic. And as a result of that, we are moving feverishly to ensure that we put the kind of institutional structures in place that would assist in having a mental health framework to work with, and having a mental health institution where individuals that are needing of these services can definitely have them at the appropriate point in time.
Any other question
Can I
from
ask
you,
a
Linda?
follow-up? Yes, my follow-up to that. Am I correct to say, based on what the minister said, that we have a third suspected case? And if that is the case, is that person in some form of isolation, or are they just free to roam?
At this particular point in time, no, the individual is being monitored, but the individual is not in isolation.
All right, that's it for you, Linda.
For now.
Good morning. Go right ahead, Troy.
Troy Gill with MTV News. Good morning to the head table. My question is for the Minister of Health. As it relates to the testing for monkeypox, how soon will Grenada be able to increase its capacity in terms of testing without having to depend on CARFA at this present time?
Well, at present, Troy, my mic is on. At present, Troy, we do have tests on the island. So whenever we have any wind that there is a suspected case, we will definitely be able to test effectively. In fact, we have ramped up human resource personnel in our laboratory so that we're able to have the manpower to do so. And also per adventure that we have any increased amount of cases on the island, we have the manpower to test, and we have the tests on the island as well. Yeah.
Okay, are you in a position to say to speak a little bit more about the test and how much currently we have on island?
Currently we have on island quite a few. I'm not going to give the amount at this particular point in time, but we have quite a few, and CARFA has agreed to also provide some more in the event that we have increased cases. So we're in safe hands. You can be assured of that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it for you, Troy? All right, thank you. GBN, good morning.
Good morning, Leslie, and good morning, at table. I know that the minister and the PS would have speak about situations of some of the situations of the actions that is being taken. But what I wanted to ask is there any proactive measures in the ports of entries? We're talking about the airports, any proactive measures that's going to be taking place there? Training maybe for the custom officers in detecting these sort of disease that is coming in.
Is that Rena Pear? Oh, hi Rena, how are you? Nice to see you. As of next week, Rena, we are going to be ramping up measures to do so. Currently, our CMO is off island attending a CARFA conference, I believe, in Trinidad and Tobago. So as soon as he gets back, we have been speaking about that from the time our feet hit the ground as ministers in our various ministries. Well, for me as Minister for Health. And as a result, as of next week, as soon as he gets back together with our technical team, we are going to be engaging with Ports Authority. I did have a conversation this morning with Mrs. Joseph at the MBIA, and they are ramping up their sanitization efforts as well. And as of next week, God's willing, we are going to be we are going to ensure that they're given specific instructions as it relates to preventative measures to take at these various ports of entries.
Is that it from you, Ms. Bia?
No. What about educating the public? It's the carnival season, the festive season has already started. We already have visitors in here. So what about educating the public about monkeypox? What to expect? What should they look for? Because in the festive season, we see a lot of people dancing. The crowd will be getting people to have that 6 foot distance would be a difficult thing. So what about that?
I quite agree. So we have already started our education drive on our Facebook page, Ministry of Health. In fact, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to ask the public to go like and subscribe to our Facebook page so that you can keep abreast with the adverts that we're putting out and all of the graphics that we're putting out on monkeypox and the new strain of the COVID-19 virus. In fact, as of next week also, as I alluded to, we are going to be on radio, television, so expect a lot of media presence from us moving forward. I have already spoken to our PRO and given him the mandate to ensure that we have a much more stronger social media presence, and that includes all media outlets. Yeah.
That's it for you, Irina? Troy, do you have another question?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay, my question is as it relates to, well, this is the first time since the pandemic that Grenada is going to be having a spice mass of that nature. And of course, around that time, especially after the festive season, we see an increase in sexually transmitted diseases, teenage pregnancy, and so forth. So, coming from the Ministry of Health, what is going to be done to sensitize people about these particular issues to ensure that this is managed as carefully and as promptly as possible to avoid any increases in sexually transmitted diseases and so forth, and to reduce teenage pregnancy as well?
Well, Troy, public education is the way to go. I hardly believe that if you want to engage in any kind of sexual relations, I could stop you because you're an adult. But at the same time, public education is the way to go. And because we forewarn you with the education, we trust that our public would be forearmed as a result. Yeah. So as we educate, we expect our citizens to use the education and to act responsibly in their behavioral patterns. Yeah.
Thank you, Troy. Nancy Maguire, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to everybody. I'd like to know on the COVID-19 tests that we've been doing and finding the few positive cases, what strain are these positive cases? Thank you.
I didn't get your question, Nancy. No, the first part of the question had a particular word that I didn't get.
Nancy, can you repeat?
Yes, on the COVID-19, the positive cases that we've been recording a few every so often, I want to know what strain of the virus those positive cases are. Thank you, Minister.
Oh, well, it's not the strain that just came out, I can assure you. So it's the strain that we have been dealing with for the past 2 years or so. So at this particular point in time, we can rest assured that on island, we do not have the new strain of the COVID-19 virus, and we do not have monkeypox as well.
Is that it, Nancy?
And on the educational aspect of monkeypox, what are you doing beyond Facebook? What about people that don't have Facebook? And are you going to be going out into the public with any face-to-face kind of engagements? Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. As I alluded to just a while ago, we have started our public education engagement. We have started with our Facebook page, our Ministry of Health Facebook page, and as of next week, God's willing, we are going to go out into the public, as well as using public address system, of course, as well as using our radio, television to sensitize the public in a mass way. You can expect that.
Thank you, Minister. Nancy, is that it for you?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anisha Paul, good morning.
Pleasant good morning to everyone. My question for the Minister of Health, as it relates to the COVID-19 vaccines, the vaccination rate has been, it has not moved much since the vaccination campaign began. Can you provide an update as it relates to the vaccines that are on island and the plan for them before they expire? Thank you.
We do have a number of vaccines still on island, as you alluded to. As it relates to the vaccination mandate, we believe that as an administration, we leave that up to a matter of choice for the people of Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. The best that we can do at this particular point in time is educate individuals or the general population as it relates to the pros and cons of taking the vaccine. And in consultation with your medical practitioner, if you feel safe enough that this is something that you want to do, at the end of the day, the ball is in your court. The choice is yours to get vaccinated. But I don't think at any particular point in time the government is going to mandate or force anyone against their own will to be vaccinated.
Any other questions from you, Nisha?
Yes, just as a follow-up, what are the plans for if they're not used? What are the plans for these vaccines? Are you planning to share them with other islands? What are we doing? Thank you.
Well, on the lighter side of things, sharing is caring, and if it comes to that, excuse me, and if it comes to that, then so be it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
GBN, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I have one final question. In speaking to the CMO recently, he would have indicated that monkeypox can also be shared through droplets and other similar ways like COVID-19. Now, understanding that this can be something that is, or this is something that is contagious, how is Grenada, well, the different hospitals, are they ready? Are they equipped with the right equipments? Is it a situation where we need a special equipment? Is it a situation where all the hospitals will be able to handle, and can the health system handle it if it comes to the point where we have a lot of Did you hear me?
Yes, I think I understood. I understood the thread of the question. Rena, let me be honest with you and with the Grenadian population. I believe that we all know that we have a human resource deficit within our health sector at this particular point in time. Over the past 3 years or so, we have lost over 100 and something nurses, and that at present we are functioning with a very low capacity rate. And as a result of that, we have to double up efforts with the healthcare practitioners that are left behind here in the country. And I can assure you that from my ministry's perspective, my PSs, my entire healthcare practitioner staff, we are going to be doing everything within our power in the event that there is an increase in monkeypox cases to ensure that the spread is minimized and to ensure that Grenadians are kept safe. We are just coming out of an almost 2-year mask mandate and sanitizing mandate, and to some extent we would like to be very sensitive. But if we have to go back to it so that the country can be protected, we will have to go back to it. So that is why I'm saying in the coming week or two, you are going to be hearing more from the Ministry of Health as it relates to instructions. Once we know that the virus or viruses have touched our shores, you will be informed consistently, you will be engaged on a regular basis as to what is the modus operandi moving forward from a country perspective.
Thank you. That's it, Rena?
Yes.
Callistra, good morning. Callistra, are you there? All right, we seem to be having a little problem there. Are you hearing me, Callistra? Go right ahead.
Yes, I am. Excuse the name on the screen. People have been playing with my device. Minister, I was late. My apologies. And so I'm not sure if I missed it. Mask mandates. Is the government going to be reinstating mask mandates in specific areas, such as buses, where people are at increased risk of exposure? Particularly because it's very hot, it's the hurricane season, and the buses are using the ACs, and so, or are we going to maintain a sort of a free-for-all approach to COVID prevention measures?
Hi, Callistra. Nice to hear you this morning. I was just responding to a question from one of the media personnel as it relates to mask mandate, and I was just saying that we are just coming out of an almost 2-year mask and sanitizing mandate, and we're trying to be sensitive because by and large we have not really gotten rid of COVID. It was always there, just at a very minimal rate. As a result of that, I also said to the media personnel, if we have to go back to a mask mandate, then that is going to be the instructions that we are going to give from the Ministry of Health perspective. But as it stands right now, we're just asking Grenadians to be very cautious, to exercise some level of vigilance, and once we know that the virus is on our shores, we are going to implement and institute some directives that will definitely speak to the protection of all PT Martiniquans, Carriaconians, and Grenadians.
I have another question, Minister. In the General Hospital of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique, the state of Grenada, as the Constitution says, there's a CT scan that the previous administration had talked a lot about. Have you found, since you took up that portfolio, that we have the necessary experts who can read the information that comes from these tests and the necessary technicians for maintenance and so? What's the status of that machine?
We actually had a discussion about that yesterday, both PS and I and Director of Hospital Services, I believe. Yeah. So I'm going to let PS, because that's her area, I'm going to let PS Jeremiah answer that question for you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Well, at present, as we all know, that we have a high-class, first-class CT scan that is installed at the General Hospital. It's installed, it's ready to be used. At present, we at the Ministry are doing analysis of the fees that are being paid. As the Grenadian public is aware, we have the Spice Isle Imaging Center, which also provides CT scan services. We also have the hospital, private hospital, St. Augustine. St. Augustine also provides CT scan services. So we are doing a feasibility study, and very shortly, myself and my minister will ensure that the services at the General Hospital is ready for the public. We are finalizing the way forward in terms of fees. And as soon as that is accomplished, within a period of no less than 3 weeks, that services will be delivered to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique, so that we can provide that very much needed service. I see the smiles on the Grenadian people when they see that the services are being ushered in, and the relief that will be beneficial to all. We will, of course, look at some criteria for exemptions, which is needed, because as we know, the population of Grenada, we have the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class, and we have to give consideration to the needy. So definitely that service will be up and about, running definitely within that 2 weeks period. As soon as we get certain approvals through the cabinet, then we move forward very quickly on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PS.
PS, Lesbian, I'm sorry, PS, if you could just indulge me a bit more. You spoke about affordability and fees and so on, but the question that I asked was, do we have the experts and the technicians to keep this service going?
Oh yes, we have a team of experts at the Ministry of Health who is ready. I site visited that hospital last week. And the head of the radiology department, she is all excited and ready. And Grenadians, we should be proud of what the facility that we have at hand. I'm excited, and I know the people who will visit for the services there will feel a sense of satisfaction with the services that will be delivered to them. We have the expert training, we have the personnel required, we have the human resource capacity. Of course, Minister stressed that we may have some deficiencies in terms of numbers, but as for the experts to read the reading from the scan, we have the capacity to deliver that to the Grenadian people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Callisto will have to leave it there, I'm sorry. Johnson Richardson, you have the opportunity for a quick question because as was mentioned at the start, the Honorable Minister and the Permanent Secretary have to leave. So Johnson, please go ahead. Johnson, good morning. Are you there? It seems as though Johnson is not there. So Minister and PS, if you all have any final words. So PS, if you have, we'll start with you and the final one from the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. I would like to say the implementation of the CT scan at the General Hospital will have a major impact on our health service delivery because this service will enhance our ability to diagnose our patients in a timely manner. This increases the ability to diagnose imaging at the General Hospital, which will enable our physicians to a more adequate diagnose to treat patients. And I'm very happy with this development. As I said previously, I visited the facility and the facility is up and about and it should be instituted within no less than 3 weeks as soon as we have all the approvals from Cabinet. On the other note, I would like to say at the Ministry of Health, we are presently reviewing the strategies, the procedures for the carnival season. As you know, we will have a flood of Grenadians, visitors, tourists to our shores. We are ready. We have reviewed our structures, what we are going to be doing in terms of manpower, in terms of having the ambulance available, in terms of the general hospital, the emergency units, having the units ready and about to face with the, of course, increased number of patients coming to the emergency unit. So we are already in front and ahead in terms of the strategy that we are going to be using. We have asked the director to inform the nursing quadrille. As you know, we have a hemorrhaging of nursing from our trial and state, and we are working tediously to ensure that the hemorrhaging stop. And we know that with this season on hand, with the carnival season on hand, with the hurricane disaster season on hand, that our capacity will have to increase so that we can meet the services that is required. So again, we have all the procedures and the plans in place for Carnival 2022. We know that we past 2 years we were unable to host the carnival season because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we already have systems in place, procedures and policies in place whereby we're able to serve the Grenadian people, the visitors, the tourists that will be coming to our shores for Carnival 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PS. Minister, the final word is yours.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, PS Jeremiah. When I started my deliberations this morning with you, I alluded to the fact that one of the things that health sectors around the entire Caribbean and health ministers around the entire Caribbean must do is to ensure that the stewardship and leadership of the health sector is second to none. I want to ensure you that the Ministry of Health, within our capacity, as I alluded to before as well, is going to do everything within our power. If it means collaborating with stakeholders, both locally, regionally, and internationally, so that we can have the kind of capacity that we need to ensure that Grenada stays safe and to ensure that Grenadians are satisfied with the measures, institutional measures that have been put in place to keep us at bay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Senator Jonathan Lacrette, Minister for Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs, as well as PS Naomi Jeremiah, responsible for strategic and operational management of the general and subsidiary hospitals, Mungay Psychiatric Hospital, Richmond Home and Community Health Services, as we mentioned. They will have to leave, so stay with us, viewers. We will take a quick break so that they will exit, and then we will be right back with the Honorable Prime Minister as well as the Honorable Ron Breadhead. So stay with us.
to date and informed with the latest developments in Grenada while on the go. Subscribe to the Government Information Services social media platforms. Get updates on your mobile devices for our live programs, news, media conferences, and much more. The Government Information Service, keeping the people of Grenada informed on the go.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
Count me, because we all count.
Count all of us. Nothing about us without us.
Count me.
Count me. We all count too.
Count me.
Count me. We all count too.
Count me. We are people too.
Count all of us. Nothing about us without us. Because we all count for the coming census.
Good morning. Once again, we are back with you, and we have with us, as promised, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister, as well as Mr. Ron Redhead, Minister of State with responsibility for youth and sports in the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. So we'll start off at this moment with the Honorable Ron Redhead. Good morning again.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Good morning to members of the media, and good morning, Grenadians all, both at home and in the diaspora. This morning, I am pleased to report that government has agreed to provide a much-needed injection into the Spice Mass Cooperation to host a successful Spice Mass 2022. The injection is to the tune of $1 million, and we believe that this injection will be vital to ensure that, in fact, Spice Mass is successful this year. We would like to encourage all to continue to follow the protocols as outlined by the Minister of Health. And as we go through Spice Mass 2022, we would just ask all to be vigilant as we proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister.
Good morning again to everyone listening to the briefing. I'm going to address a couple of issues. The first is announcements in relation to air transportation between Grenada and Carriacou. Cabinet on Monday, yesterday, agreed to continue with the agreement that had been signed by the previous administration with SVG Air to ensure that we can have air transportation available between Carriacou and Grenada. As the public is aware, that has been a major source of discontent, particularly for the citizens of Carriacou, and we felt it important to jump on this as quickly as we could. So we are going to proceed with the agreement with SVG Air. The agreement is going to contemplate starting, or we expect that flights will commence on the 1st of August. The original start date was the 1st of July, but because of delays in terms of parts and so on for the aircraft, the start date was pushed back. So we expect this to commence on the 1st of August. The expected days on which flights will occur is 5 days per week: Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and Saturdays and Sundays. So we really are pleased to announce that we are proceeding with this. We think certainly it will help our citizens in Carriacou. It will help economic activity between Grenada and Carriacou, and critically as well, for some of the basic services that are needed, such as persons who are ill, who need medical services in Grenada. This obviously is required in order to ensure that they can travel relatively effectively between Carriacou and Grenada. So that should commence on the 1st of August. It in effect means that the government is subsidizing the cost of the travel. That is part of the reason why the agreement had to take place between the government and the airlines. The agreement contemplates the use of 2 aircrafts, a Twin Otter aircraft as well, and it also contemplates service starting from St. Vincent, coming to Carriacou, heading to Grenada, and then Grenada, Carriacou, St. Vincent. So we're quite happy about that. Last Monday, Cabinet also gave the green light for the Board of Tourism to proceed with negotiations with British Airways to ensure that air service between Grenada and the UK continues past December 31st, 2022. The current agreement expires on the 31st of December 2022. That agreement provides for 2 flights per week to Grenada. The new agreement that is being negotiated, we're hoping to up the flights to 3. We think our stakeholders in the tourism industry, particularly our hoteliers, as well as Grenadians in the UK diaspora in particular, I think will be happy if we can in fact come to terms with the British Airways. So we are hoping that we can negotiate this agreement and conclude it swiftly, so that come the winter season for 2023, that airlift between Grenada and the UK market is secured. I want to address 3 issues that we campaigned on from a programmatic platform that we've begun work on. The first is in relation to the bi-monthly payment of salaries within the government service. The technical team at the Ministry of Finance has begun looking at that issue. We are also going to ask the Attorney General's Chambers and the Ministry of Legal Affairs to also join that team to look at that issue. The very preliminary response from the technical team is that we believe that we can achieve putting this in place in the next 6 to 8 months. I want to say that from a legal framework, what we are hoping to do is to ensure that there's flexibility in the labor market, while at the same time setting out minimum standards. The minimum standard obviously will be to ensure that no employee works for beyond a month or 30 days without being paid. But we want within that 30-day period to provide, particularly to the private sector, flexibility where employees can continue to be paid daily, weekly, bi-monthly or monthly as the case may be. So we certainly want to give employers and employees the option of these choices, because we think the flexibility would be required to ensure that we do not in any way stymie economic growth and development, and we encourage flexibility within the labor market. But from a government perspective, we want to be able to move the time frame by which government employees are paid from monthly to bi-monthly, because as we indicated, we certainly think that will help employees in particular with cash flow and managing their financial affairs. So we are looking forward to being in a position to implement this within a 6 to 8 month period, while at the same time guaranteeing that there are minimum standards in terms of length of time within which an employee must be paid, while at the same time providing flexibility for particularly the private sector. The second issue that we have begun technical work on is the question of whether we can implement within a reasonable time a cap on the freight costs to assist with reducing the cost of living for imported goods into Grenada. As you recall, we indicated that one of our options that we were prepared to put on the table was to have a cap on freight, because freight has in fact gone up significantly. In some cases, it's doubled since the onset of COVID-19, with the challenges faced logistically, the challenges faced with transportation, and obviously the Russian-Ukraine war has not improved the situation. So the technical team is carrying out that work. We expect that we should have a report next week. That report would also look at comparative approaches that have been taken in the region to address this issue. And once we get the report, Cabinet will obviously be considering it, and we will come back to the public as to the approach we will take. This may involve us having to pass a statutory rules and order to specifically address the question of the rate of freight that is charged at customs. So we expect in the next 2 weeks or so that we should be able to come back to address this specific issue. A quick update on the pensions issue. The team at the Ministry of Finance is continuing its work on that issue. The Pension Secretariat, we expect to be fully staffed and to be properly resourced, with a view that all of the necessary due diligence, all of the necessary checking and rechecking, all of the necessary verification can be carried out within the next 2 to 3 months. We are aiming, this morning the PS and I had a briefing, and we are aiming, as we said, subject to having comments and responses from the unions by the end of July, to be in a position where whatever decision that is agreed upon, whether the entire retroactive element is paid or whether a portion of it is paid with a payment plan, to ensure that we can meet actual payment by the 15th of November, which gives us a 2-week period so that we can do any mopping up to address any persons who might have slipped through the cracks or any discrepancies that may exist. I want to turn quickly to the issue of our expressions of interest. As you are aware, at my acceptance of the Office of Prime Minister on the 24th of June, I indicated that we would be opening up particularly state-owned enterprises, government statutory bodies, and other committees to members of the public who wish to serve. To assist us in doing this, we have created an expression of interest portal, which we have publicized on social media, so that members of the public who wish to serve can in fact submit their expressions of interest, submit their resume, their background, as well as an indication of the entities that they may wish to serve on. I'm happy to report that this was launched only 5 days ago, and we've received as much as of last night, 1,007 expressions of interest. I think that in and of itself, in a very short period, demonstrates the willingness and the keenness, the excitement that Grenadians feel in being given the opportunity to serve their nation. We have begun looking at the expressions of interest. We've begun filtering them. The tool we are using is quite useful and has allowed us to be able to come up with some analysis of where the expressions of interest are coming and the demographics surrounding the expressions of interest. And I just want to, by way of example, share some of that with you. So of the 1,007 expressions of interest that we received, 59% is female and 41% male, in relation to persons who are residing outside of Grenada. We have 73 persons who've applied who reside in the United States, 17 who reside in Canada, 17 who reside in the United Kingdom, 14 who reside in Canada, 11 from Trinidad and Tobago, 25 from other countries. We've got 6 from Barbados, 5 from St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, happily, the bulk is from Grenada. We have 853 applicants from Grenada, representing 85% of the persons who've indicated a willingness to serve. A quick snapshot of these expressions indicate that there are very talented, very experienced, highly qualified Grenadians who should be given the opportunity to serve. And so we are taking the policy decision as much as we can to reserve at least 1/3 of spaces on government boards or statutory bodies where we can do so to be filled by persons who have taken part in this process of expressing an interest to serve. Of course, we don't have 1,000 positions to fill. And so naturally, not everyone who's expressed an interest will find themselves being offered or given an opportunity to serve on a board or a state-owned entity, as the case may be. But we do not want you to be discouraged, because we certainly want to be able to use the data that has been provided to see where else persons can serve. As you're aware, outside of boards, there are always committees and subcommittees of boards. There is significant work that we need to do within our communities, villages in particular. And we certainly would want to, whenever possible, be able to use the data that has been provided to allow persons to serve in other areas within the government or within the community. That said, I want to report quickly that we have begun to fill some of the critical boards that are required to ensure the smooth functioning of the government, and we will continue to do so. persons who are on the boards just yet, simply because that process began in earnest yesterday at Cabinet. I can indicate some of the entities for which boards have been selected. These include the Grenada Development Bank, the Grenada Electricity Services Limited, popularly known as GrenLec. Just one moment. The Citizenship by Investment Committee, the National Lotteries Authority. We are currently working on constituting the board for the Grenada Industrial Development Corporation, the Marketing and National Importing Board, the Planning and Development Authority, the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, and the Grenada Tourism Authority, and the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission. We expect to fill these positions in the coming week. And once that is done, obviously, the requisite gazetting of the notices will occur. So we appreciate that filling these positions are critical to the continued smooth functioning of the government. And there are some boards which require major, urgent attention. The Marketing and National Importing Board is one. The Planning and Development Authority is another. And so we intend to take swift action to address those two entities in particular. So that's the quick update, Leslie, on my end, and we are happy to entertain any questions that your colleagues in the media may have.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Colleagues, any quick questions from you? Troy, go right ahead.
Yes, good morning again. My question is for the Prime Minister. Two questions, actually. The first question being, as you mentioned, the cap on freight. Is there any plans to redress or to address the cap on fuel as we continue to see an increase on the international market? And how feasible it is for the cap to remain as it is at this particular time? And secondly, can you bring us up to speed with regards to that new appointment of an ambassador at large, Grenada to Nigeria, I think it is?
All right, I'll take the second question first, and I'm not sure if you were here last week, but I'll ask that we do the same, which is one question, one answer, one question, one answer, to make sure that we follow smoothly. The second question, our government has not appointed any ambassador at large, any honorary consul. We have made no diplomatic appointments. I indicated at the swearing-in ceremony of the Ministers of Cabinet that we were recalling all diplomatic appointees. Cabinet has since passed the necessary approval to do so, and the Ministry of Finance is working through the necessary administrative requirements of recalling whether they're ambassadors at large, trade consulars, honorary consuls, and whatever respective titles they may go on. Some of the diplomats have, in fact, even without us doing so, I think those who properly understand diplomatic protocol have generally been coming in and returning home. So I haven't actually seen the story that was circulated yesterday. I was told about it. But to be clear, we have not appointed anyone. And to the contrary, we've indicated that we are recalling and are in the process of recalling everyone. So that's the most I can say. I don't know the basis or the genesis for the story. If there were appointments that were made by the prior administration, the same applies. Whether they were made 2 or 3 years ago or whether they were made 6 days before the elections, the same applies. We are recalling everyone. So that's my response on that. In relation to the cap on fuel, the cap on fuel remains currently. This is something we have to pay attention to. So we will be monitoring it and reviewing it monthly. We've taken no policy decision at this point in time to remove it. It remains in place, but clearly by having a cap in relation to fuel, it means the government is losing revenue. So there's no doubt that it is a temporary measure and it's not something that could remain indefinitely. What we are seeking to do is recognizing that we are living in a very difficult time. You've had all of the challenges posed by COVID-19. You've had significant downturn, in the economy. We are trying to rebound. we've had significant rises in the cost of living. There's significant logistic and transportation issues. The war between Russia and Ukraine have exacerbated economic conditions worldwide. And so we recognize that ultimately, if the cap is removed, it means the cost of fuel is going to go up. And the cost of fuel is perhaps one of the most important items in determining the overall cost of living. And so from our perspective, we want to do everything we can within reason and within a sustainable period that will lessen the impact of the continued rise in the cost of living on our citizens. So this is something that we'll be monitoring month to month. If there's a need to change the policy, certainly we'll be coming back to the public and giving adequate notice of that so persons can prepare appropriately.
Thank you very much. Linda Straker, good morning once again. Linda, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right,
Hello?
go ahead.
Yes, I'm actually following up on the question that Troy would have asked. Can the Prime Minister tell us whether or not there is a relationship between Grenada and one named Mr. Tushel Narari of Nigeria? Can he also tell us whether or not that there is plans to have an investment summit in Grenada in October involving both countries? And I ask it against the background of the stories coming out of yesterday out of Nigeria. There is even an article where the Prime Minister is shaking hands with the gentleman. Can he tell us if he had ever met this man for them to have a picture shaking hands?
All right, so let me answer. Let me see if I can answer the three questions, because again, I'm not sure if you heard me last week and if you heard me this morning. I'm asking that we ask one question so I can respond, and then you can ask the other questions. I sense from what has been asked that there are three questions. One, I am not aware of any summit or investment summit planned for between Grenada and Abuja is a province in Nigeria. It's not, as far as I'm aware, a state or a country. So I'm not aware of any investment summit between Abuja or Nigeria, for that matter, and Grenada. I have not agreed the same, and it's the first time I'm hearing about it. Two, I am, as I think I've said, I am not aware that the gentleman that you referred to has been appointed as in any diplomatic position for Grenada. If he was, he would not have been appointed by this government. If he has been so appointed, he certainly would be recalled. And third, I met the gentleman last Monday evening. It was a courtesy call that he asked to pay to me. He was accompanied by another Grenadian who also was appointed as a diplomat by the prior administration. And when he made that courtesy call, he asked for a photo, and the photo was given. When I met the gentleman, I certainly was not under the impression, nor did he convey to me, that he had been appointed as any diplomat. So I hope I've answered the questions.
That's it for you, Linda?
Can you just share with us the other diplomat who would have brought the gentleman to him?
No, I would prefer not to.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to GBN. Good morning once again.
Good morning. My first question to the Prime Minister is, can public servants choose whether or not they would like to receive their salaries fortnightly or monthly?
That's a good question. It's not something that I think we have settled upon. I think for us, the policy position that we've said is that we would certainly want to move the payment to bi-monthly payments. So I think as part of the process and the consultation that is taking place, we would obviously examine that. I think we would want to have efficiency within the system, because obviously when you're paying salaries, it's not just the salaries, there are deductions, NIS, etc., tax implications that have to be factored in, and that is why the technical team obviously is going to look at that.
You have another question, Rina? Go ahead, please.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the portal you spoke about relating to persons who want to serve, where it was posted, where persons can find it, stuff like that? You said it was 5 days old, so there's not much as to where it is and stuff like that. That was before.
All right. So I think it's online. The portal is online, and it's the weboffice.gd. So you can find it at weboffice.gd.
That's it, Rena.
For now.
Nancy Maguire, good morning again.
Good morning, and good morning to you, Prime Minister.
Good morning.
When you talked about the statutory bodies initially, one of the ones you specifically mentioned was the post office and finding out who actually owns it. I'm asking about that post office in that sense, but also in the mail service that has been disrupted since COVID due to the lack of flights here. And so mail from Canada, for example, hasn't arrived for months and months and months. And I'm just wondering, in your pursuit of improving the service of these statutory bodies, what can you tell us about the post office and its ownership? Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, I have not been able to ascertain as yet who owns the post office. For now, I'm going on the assumption that it's a state-owned entity. But as you're aware, historically, there's been significant changes with the way in which I guess what was once the Department of Post was operated to when it became a statutory body. And then suggestions, certainly in the media, that attempts were being made to privatize it. So I have not yet gotten to the bottom of that issue. We should be mindful that a month has not passed since we've assumed office.
Yes, sir, I understand that. But tied to it, as you announced earlier, the flights for the UK, what is the work that the tourism authority is doing about flights to Grenada from Canada? And if we don't have flights, how are we going to get our mail here? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, to be fair to the tourism authority, the situation in Canada to a large extent is beyond our control. I think the Canadian authorities' approach to how it has handled the COVID-19 has been pretty strict. And so I think the question of getting flights and the resumption of flights from Canada is partly, if not largely, dependent on the Canadian authority perspective to opening up Canada, so to speak. You'd appreciate that the more restricted a country is in terms of its protocols arising from COVID-19, is the less likely the airlines are going to fly. And so, for now, it is something that we have that. Certainly as a government, we have not actively engaged the tourism authority with as yet. So I'm not in a position to say to you definitively what the tourism authority is doing, but I can certainly say from a observation point of view, Canada has been a market where it's been difficult, certainly as a result of COVID-19, because of the sort of very restricted policies that have been put in place by the Canadian government to control the spread of COVID-19 and its impact on air travel. But certainly once that eases, and hopefully it will continue doing so, I'm sure that it's an issue that the tourism authority will be looking into.
That's it for you, Nancy?
I have one more. On the data that you've collected on the expressions of interest that you received for the statutory bodies, can you give us an idea of the age range? Thank you.
It's varied. I can't give you, it's something we can filter for, but in terms of giving you an immediate answer, I'm not in a position to do so. But the tool does allow us to filter. So I can perhaps ask the technical team to perhaps filter that, and if need be, Leslie Ann can always provide information later in the day to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Callistra, good morning again. Callistra, are you there?
Good morning. Yes, I am here. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning.
The pension, the $60 million, after that is paid and we are brought up to date with the back payments, what's next for pension? Because I believe you'd also acknowledge that it doesn't stop at the $60 million payment. How do we intend to handle things going forward?
Well, what's next partly, if not largely, depends on the behavior of persons who may be entitled to retire. A pension, the actual payment of a pension will only happen if you are retiring. If you are not retiring, there is no what's next. as you may be aware, the various public officers who are affected by this issue, from the police, prison, have different pension schemes in terms of length of service at which you become entitled to be retired, etc. To that extent, there's a significant variance between, say, other workers who get an NIS pension, which, for example, I think who can retire after 26 and a half years or 26 and 1/3 or 2/3 service. That person may be 50 years old or 52 years old. If that person, it's his entitlement if he chooses to retire. Obviously, on a case-by-case basis, the pension becomes due. If he doesn't choose to retire and he chooses to work until 60, for example, then his pension payment only becomes due at 60. So in terms of what next, in terms of actual payment of pension, the what next, as I said, is largely dependent on the behavior of public workers who legally may become entitled or qualified to receive a pension if they choose to retire. And in that sense, that's why I said that is something we would have to discuss with unions and their membership. If there is a mass exodus, I think last week I presented the fact that there are as many as 1,800 workers who, based on the ruling and based on years of service or the various qualifications when it comes to entitlement for pension, as many as 1,800 persons may be so entitled to retire. If 1,800 of them choose to retire, that is, from a financial projections perspective, the worst case scenario. It will mean you having a mass exodus from the services across all of them. And it means, obviously, the government will then find 1,800 people who prior were not retirees, now been retirees and now been entitled to a pension. That obviously will have to be serviced. It will have implications for the government's fiscal position. It will have implications for the economy. And it would have implications for the ability of the government to deliver its service to the people. It will also have implications for younger people in the country. So that's the wider context in which that has to be looked at. If, however, you have a few individual persons deciding to retire, then in a sense it's a non-issue because the fiscal impact, the financial impact would be significantly less. So I hope I've answered the question.
Any other from you, Callistra, before we move on? All right, Nisha, good morning. Colleagues, we're getting ready to wrap this up, so we'll have Nisha, GBN, and one from social media. Nisha, good morning again. Nisha, are you there? GBN,
are we back to that again?
Hello, is Nisha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, please go ahead.
Good morning again to the head table and the Honorable Prime Minister. Are there any immediate plans for pension reform?
Well, pension reform is an issue we have to address. There are no immediate plans. I think, in a sense, part of the reformation deals with addressing your historical liabilities. So it's one step at a time. We want to address the outstanding issue. Once that's addressed, then certainly it is likely that a committee will be put in place to address all stakeholders to address the issue of pension reform.
That's it for you, Nisha?
I just have another question. As it relates to the issue of the freight costs, I can recall that during the campaign you stated that the government was generating a lot of money from the increase in the freight costs. Have you been able to assess that situation to see how much money was actually being generated or is actually being generated as a result?
That's part of the analysis that's been done. So once the report comes in, we will be in a position to compare 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022.
All right, GBN, quickly.
Yes, I just have one more question for the Prime Minister and one for the Minister for Sports and Culture. Let me just deal with the Sports and Culture. Minister, could you tell me the $1 million, has it been disbursed yet? Or when would it be? And what exactly, in which aspect would that money be placed into? What exactly would it be spent on? And Prime Minister, my question, you mentioned about MNIB and the Planning and Development Committee as the two most important ones. Could you elaborate just a little about the Planning and Development Committee? What is that? Some people may not know. And could you expound on what are the concerns for the MNIB board?
Thank you, Rena. In relation to the question regarding the $1 million, now SpiceMass did prepare a budget to which government has looked at and made the disbursement from the level of NLE. So as it relates to what specifically it will be spent on, it was outlined in a budget.
All right. Thank you. Perhaps for clarification, we should point out that NLA is the National Lotteries Authority. So just to be clear, what Cabinet has agreed to do is to authorize the National Lotteries Authority to give a subvention of $1 million to the SpiceMass Corporation. In relation to the questions surrounding the Marketing and National Importing Board and the Planning and Development Authority Board, the Planning and Development, I'll take the Planning and Development Authority Board first. The Planning and Development Authority, which has a board, is the authority that is responsible for granting approval for the subdivision of land in Grenada for development purposes and approval to construct or to have development take place on land. In simpler terms, the construction of buildings, whether they be residential, commercial, or industrial on lands. So anyone who wants to develop land in Grenada is required to apply to the Planning and Development Authority for permission to do so. It requires you to submit your plans, to have the plans reviewed by the authority, and then for permission to be granted. It has become critical because I think at the best of time, the public has been dissatisfied with the pace at which the authority carries out its work. The authority to some extent has been in transition. It's a statutory body, and it has had staffing and resource issues. Some of the staff are attached to the Ministry of Finance. Some of the staff are actually in the authority itself. Its offices are now in the GCNA commercial complex. And so even prior to us assuming office, we were aware that from an operational point of view, the authority was challenged, and therefore its ability to deliver the services in an efficient and swift manner to the public has also been severely compromised. The effect is, for instance, you have persons who submitted plans, and I can say this because I experienced this myself, and it took in excess of a year for the authority to approve your plan. Now, if you're trying to build a house, for example, and you submit your plan and it takes a year for a response, any number of things could have happened in that year. The cost of materials could have skyrocketed. The contractor you had could have moved on to construct another house, and so you've lost him, and you may very well find yourself starting all over again. The bank loan approval that you got usually is valid for 12 months. After 12 months, if you can't draw down the money, you have to start the process all over again. So we are aware, and I use this for a simple person trying to build a house. But for more complex development in terms of businesses and so on, it severely compromises and hinders economic development. So we need to address this. It means we are going to have to look at the law as well, perhaps in the medium term, to see whether or not it is doing what we want it to do, which is to serve the citizens efficiently. And we are going to have to look at how plans are actually approved so that the process is transparent, so that the process is efficient. I'm saying this, and I do not mean to cast any aspersions on persons who served at the authority and persons who had to approve the plans. You must be aware, for example, that in the past, even the Integrity Commission has had to look into the operations of Planning and Development Authority over allegations of fraud and corruption and so on. There's been a lot of times rumors, not necessarily factually based, but a lot of rumors over suggestions that people are not treated fairly in terms of this plan is approved, yet this person is denied, etc. So what we want to do is get to a point where there's a transparent process, where in fact the persons who are submitting their plans or their agents, because usually it's not the person building, it's not the owner of the house, but usually the architect or the contractor, as the case might be, who's making the submission on their behalf, can in fact sit in the room, whether using technology or sit physically in front of the board, present the plans, answer questions that the planning authority committee or board may have, so that in real time you can get a sense of whether your plan will be approved or not, as opposed to a situation where you submit it and you just sit and wait and there is no time frame by which a response is given. So what we want to do is get to a point where there's a mandatory time frame by which the planning authority must respond saying yea or nay, and if the answer is nay, explain to you clearly what are the challenges or what are the things you need to correct for you to get approval. So that is why I indicated the planning authority is critical, because in the 3 weeks we've assumed office, we have received significant complaints. One, about the fact that there's already a backlog of plans lodged, and seemingly no responses have been forthcoming. And obviously we need to address this as quickly as possible. The Marketing and National Importing Board, if you aren't aware, I think most persons are aware that that entity has, perhaps for as much as the last 20 years, been one problem child or another. It is hemorrhaging money. My initial brief from the PS in the Ministry of Finance suggests that it is losing as much as in excess of $1 million a month. There have been significant issues in the recent past pertaining to mismanagement, corruption, all kinds of things. You may be aware the Integrity Commission has also had to investigate the comings and goings at the Marketing and National Importing Board. And crucially, I don't think you will find a farmer or any agro-processor in Grenada who holds the Marketing and National Importing Board or who views it positively. And so we are going to have to take critical measures swiftly to address that. Hence the need to have the board put in place so we can take control of the situation and so that we can have firm recommendations as to how we go forward. I want to be very clear that based on my preliminary briefing as it pertains to the Marketing and National Importing Board, we may have to seriously consider ending the life of the Marketing and National Importing Board and reconstituting either a new entity or an entity that really was meant to carry out the mandate of the Marketing and National Importing Board. So I'm saying this early because it may not, also that it does not come as a surprise if we find ourselves there sooner rather than later. But we are here to take decisions. Sometimes you're going to have to take hard decisions. We simply cannot continue kicking the football down the road and expect that you can always come to the government for bailout after bailout after bailout with no turnaround in the fortunes of the entity, with no real plan to achieve the things that Marketing and National Importing Board was meant to do, which is really to, in my view and in our government's view, to assist producers in Grenada with finding markets for the produce within and outside of Grenada, not to engage really in retailing. And that has not been happening. And not only has it not been happening, the entity itself has been sucking significant resources out of the state to repay loans that MNIB has taken to pay basic operating costs. And that can't continue for much longer. So I hope I've answered the 2 questions.
Thank you very much. So the final 2 questions, one from social media inquiring about the reinstatement of processing Russian and Belarusian passports through the CBI. Will that continue or be suspended?
All right. So the CBI board has been put in place. We expect the committee to obviously be briefed and oriented in the coming days. We expect the committee to do a general overview of the state of CBI as well as the state of processing of all applications, and including of Russian and Belarusian nationality. And then obviously they would provide guidance to us, and then we would make that policy decision.
Thank you very much. Then final question from Johnson. Good morning. Johnson, are you there? All right, so it seems as though Johnson is having some difficulties this morning.
Question was written in the chat.
All right, so he's inquiring about the Victoria Health Project. What exactly about it? Funding and estimated construction time?
Sorry.
That should have been for the health people, I take it.
Yeah, so I think we can note the question, and we can certainly have the Ministry of Health provide a response. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So yes, we will have to get the answer for you, Johnson, and provide a response as soon as possible. Thank you so much. So gentlemen, I'll give you an opportunity to say any final words because we've already run over time. So Mr. Redhead, I'll start with you, and then the final word, the Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. It was a pleasure to be on Post Cabinet this morning, and we are continuing to encourage Grenadians to go out and to enjoy Spice Mass 2022 at the Ministry of Culture, and also to do so vigilantly, as the Ministry of Health indicated. There is a threat of COVID-19 still looming and monkeypox.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. My only final comments would be in relation to, obviously, once Carnival is over, school resumes in September. I know the Minister of Education and his team, as well as the Minister for Infrastructure and the Minister for Mobilization, is doing everything we can to make sure that there is minimal disruption or delays to the opening of all schools. As you're aware, some of the schools are on the repairs. So, for example, in Carriacou, we are doing everything from our end, and the mandate has been to do everything that we can do, working with the contractors and so on who are repairing those schools to ensure that there's little, if not no, delays or disruptions to the opening of schools in September. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank colleagues as well as the listeners to the post-cabinet briefing, and wish each and every one of us a great day today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, as well as Mr. Ron Redhead, Minister of State with responsibility for youth and sports in the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. And of course, we do want to say thank you once again to the Minister Lacrette and PS Naomi Jeremiah, who were here this morning with us as well. Colleagues, to all of you who joined us this morning via Zoom, and those of you in the room, viewers on Channel 22, our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and of course, those of you in the diaspora, we're always so happy to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Have a blessed day, everybody.